Wednesday. This is the fifth session, right? Buenos días.
Good morning. We called to order the fifth meeting of the 76th plenary session of the Executive Committee is called to order. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, before we proceed, I wish to inform you that the Division of Conference Management of the United Nations Office at Geneva has prepared a survey concerning the quality of conference services provided at this meeting. You are invited to take this survey as your feedback is important to us. You may access the survey by scanning the QR code displayed on posters at the back of the meeting room. The Secretariat will also distribute the link to the survey by email. Thank you for your cooperation. We shall now resume consideration of agenda item 3, the general debate. In continuation of the speakers list, I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Republic of Korea on behalf of MITA. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am honored to deliver this statement on behalf of the MITA countries, Mexico, Indonesia, the Republic of Korea, Turkey, and Australia. As members of a cross-regional platform, MITA countries reaffirm our collective commitment to support international efforts to protect and find solutions for forcibly displaced persons. MITA is deeply concerned that the number of people forcibly displaced has surpassed 120 million, the highest level ever recorded, highlighting the worsening global humanitarian crisis. At the same time, UNHCR is responding under severe financial constraints, and we commend UNHCR for continuing to deliver essential protection and assistance despite these challenges. We recognize the extraordinary generosity of host countries in continuing to provide protection and basic services under difficult circumstances. Their solidarity allows displaced persons to find safety until sustainable solutions are possible. We also value the steadfast support of donor countries, yet the gap between humanitarian needs and available resources is widening. We encourage for international communities to scale up its support for the UNHCR, and to bridge this gap, predictable funding should remain vital, and it is equally important to uphold the principle of international burden and responsibility sharing. Alongside these efforts, broadening and diversifying the donor base, including through enhanced cooperation with development actors, international financial institutions, and the private sector, are also critical, and we encourage UNHCR to continue and further strengthen these initiatives. Under the leadership of the High Commissioner, the office has also undertaken important reform measures, including workforce adjustment and efficiency improvement. These reforms are essential to building a more agile and effective organization. MITA stands ready to contribute to this process, and we encourage UNHCR to continue aligning its efforts with UNAT and the humanitarian reset, ensuring that the international humanitarian system remains fit for purpose. We encourage the international community to bolster our cooperation in addressing the root causes of forcibly displaced persons. In doing so, sustainable solutions must remain at the center of international protection. These efforts encompass inclusive policies that ensure displaced persons can access education, healthcare, and livelihood, thereby strengthening social cohesion and self-reliance. These efforts must also ensure that the specific needs of women and persons in vulnerable situations, including children and persons with disabilities, are fully taken into account. Within this broader framework, resettlement and complementary pathways such as labor mobility and education opportunities are critical tools. They provide displaced persons with opportunities for stability and growth while easing pressure on host communities. MICTA countries will continue to advocate for resettlement and complementary pathways as integral parts of a sustainable solution. We also acknowledge the indispensable role of local and host communities, civil society, and private sector, and refugee-led organizations whose engagement should be further strengthened. Mr. Chair, the Global Refugee Forum review process will soon take place. In this context, MICTA reaffirms its commitment to the pledges we made and expresses our readiness to work closely with UNHCR and all partners to ensure their effective and measurable implementation. In this spirit, MICTA reiterates its continued support for UNHCR and stands ready to work together in finding sustainable solutions to forced displacement. Finally, as the High Commissioner's 10-year tenure comes to a close, MICTA extends its sincere appreciation for his steadfast leadership and tireless service. His dedication throughout this challenging decade has been instrumental in guiding UNHCR and strengthening the international refugee protection system. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, speaking on behalf of the group of Friends in Defense of the UN Charter. The floor is yours.
Gracias.
Thank you, President. First off, allow me to commend you for your sterling leadership of this meeting. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela has the honor to take the floor on behalf of the group of Friends in Defense of the Charter of the United Nations. For reasons of time, the complete statement will be sent along to the Secretariat for its publication. Mr. President, our group of friends attaches particular importance to the mandate of the High Commissioner, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, in view of the fact that the political, economic, and social and environmental dynamics of recent decades at the global level have triggered major emergencies requiring international protection for thousands of people who are forced to leave their places of origin for reasons beyond their control. Our group of friends acknowledges that the UNHCR's activities under the authority of the General Assembly correspond to the function of providing international protection for people who fall to people falling under the scope of its statute, the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol. UNHCR must also uphold a people-centered approach and work towards seeking durable solutions, including by planning responses from the outset of refugee situations, eliminating the root causes as the most effective way to achieve solutions, and assisting governments in fulfilling their international obligations. In this context, and in light of the gravity of the situation on the ground, we seize this opportunity from the very outset to call for the urgent adoption of measures aimed at providing international protection to the heroic Palestinian people who have endured years of brutal aggression until the prevailing cycle of impunity is brought to an end and those responsible for these heinous crimes are brought to international justice. Moreover, we consider the best guarantee for ensuring sustained progress towards a more peaceful and secure world in which development and human rights are a reality is the full adherence to the spirit under which the United Nations was established, including the promotion of as enshrined the principles and purposes of its founding charter, including equal rights, self-determination, and settlement of disputes through dialogue and cooperation. Unilateralism, extremism, exceptionalist conceptions, and foreign interventionism is one of the main causes of these crises around the world. UCMs are the more sophisticated causes of human displacement. A third of humanity is denied the full enjoyment of their human rights, including the right to food, health, vaccines, medical treatment, financial service, education. More human action based on a model of unequal economic accumulation and the exploitation of resources has exacerbated the climate catastrophe, threatening the fragile balance between coexistence of humans and nature, which has generated natural phenomenon of atypical proportions. Unfortunately, these circumstances also result in mobility crises that must be addressed through solidarity and cooperation. President, the group insists that the best guarantee for the success of your mandate is a full respect for the fundamental principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, independence, in step with the guiding principles established in Resolution 46/182 of the General Assembly. The group recognizes that one of the primary objectives of the work of the UNHCR is to facilitate access to durable solutions, which includes voluntary repatriation as the preferred solution in the majority of refugee situations. In this regard, we emphasize that the assistance work of the United Nations in the context of humanitarian emergencies constitutes one of the most critical tasks of the organization, both because of the high demand for financial resources and also because of the technical expertise and high risk operational capacity that are required on the ground. The group calls to the international community, including donors and international humanitarian actors, to practice multilateralism, focus on taking real actions, and provide adequate and urgent humanitarian assistance, including with the allocation of voluntary unearmarked contributions. To conclude, the group of friends appreciates the work of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and reaffirms its willingness to collaborate at the national, regional, and international levels, while reaffirming the importance of addressing the issues inherent to its mandate from a perspective of human rights, dialogue, and cooperation, avoiding at all times the politicization of the sacred figure of refugees. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much. The next speaker on our list is the distinguished representative of Armenia. Mr. Vice Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, High Commissioner, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. As we gather today to reflect on the work of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, I wish to express on behalf of the Republic of Armenia our deep appreciation to High Commissioner Filippo Grandi for his steadfast dedication and principled leadership. Throughout his tenure, Mr. Grandi has guided the UNHCR with compassion and courage through some of the most complex humanitarian challenges of our time, responding to both prolonged crises and sudden emergencies, while advancing long-term solutions through the Global Compact on Refugees and the Global Refugee Forum. For Armenia, UNHCR support during our recent challenges has been truly indispensable. While we deeply appreciate its efforts, we also recognize the serious financial difficulties that the agency continues to face, as outlined in the High Commissioner's report. It's regrettable to hear that UNHCR has had to substantially reduce overall income projections for 2025, especially in these turbulent times for refugees, internally displaced, and stateless people. In the case of Armenia, which currently hosts the highest number of refugees per capita, it is essential to maintain the full operational capacity of the UNHCR office in Yerevan. Furthermore, Armenia stands ready to continue to strengthen its cooperation with humanitarian organizations by ensuring all necessary conditions are in place for unimpeded fulfillment of their mandates. Armenia has developed its plan for refugees with the full engagement of UNHCR through joint investment in refugee protection and solutions, as well as in mobilization of resources. Mr. Chair, in 2023, within a matter of days, the Republic of Armenia received over 115,000 forcibly displaced ethnic Armenians who fled from the region. This was an unprecedented movement of people, placing immense pressure on our national systems and the resources. Armenia responded swiftly by opening its borders, offering immediate shelter, medical care, food, and protection to those in need. This response was conducted within limited resources, but with an unwavering commitment to international humanitarian principles. Today, thousands of refugees in Armenia remain in need of long-term support. Housing, healthcare, education, psychological services, and social inclusion remain urgent priorities. Taking all of this into account, the government of Armenia has restructured its approach to refugee policy, shifting from an initial focus on emergency humanitarian assistance to development and implementation of long-term sustainable solutions. In this regard, and in order to clearly outline the necessary steps and tasks ahead, the document entitled Inclusive Livelihood National Framework for Refugees and Host Communities was developed in close collaboration with the UNHCR office in Yerevan. Armenia believes in empowering displaced persons not only as beneficiaries of aid, but also agents of recovery and development. This is why we are working to expand access to inclusive livelihoods, skill training, microfinance, entrepreneurship support, and labor market integration. With support from UNHCR and development partners, we aim to create a model where displacement does not mean dependency, but rather enables a dignified and meaningful contribution to society. Mr. Chair, the presence of UNHCR on the ground has played a crucial role in addressing the immediate humanitarian needs of those who were forced to flee their homes. We express our deep appreciation for this support and reaffirm our commitment to working in close partnership with all international actors to ensure the protection, dignity, and well-being of displaced populations. In conclusion, we call upon all member states and stakeholders to remain united in our shared responsibility. The future of displaced people, whether in Armenia or anywhere else, depends not just on humanitarian compassion, but on political will, sustained financing, and bold collaboration. And I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is the distinguished representative of Eswatini. Madam Minister, the floor is yours.
Honorable Chairperson, it is an honor to convey special greetings from His Majesty King Mswati III and the people of the Kingdom of Eswatini. His Majesty's government is grateful for the invitation to the 76th session of the Executive Committee. The Kingdom of Eswatini aligns itself with the statement of the Africa Group and reaffirms its commitment to welcoming persons who are fleeing conflicts, violence, and persecution in line with international norms and obligations. The implementation of pledges made at the Global Refugee Forum is evidence of our commitment. These pledges include strengthening our asylum system, operationalizing the refugees appeals mechanism, undertaking a mop-up exercise for ensuring everyone has a legal identity, and implementing the Inzevana agricultural project to ensure the economic inclusion of refugees and host communities. Chairperson, we recognize and applaud the vital work of the UNHCR and other international organizations who continue to provide both financial and technical support despite funding constraints. His Majesty's government was concerned when it recently received a message that funding would now only prioritize life-saving initiatives. Yet livelihood programs are equally crucial as they promote self-reliance amongst refugees and asylum seekers. We therefore applaud all those that have pledged their support for the Nzevana agricultural project, which will be implemented on over 200 hectares of land. Recently, the Southern African Migration Project, SAMP, conducted a study to assess the labor market access of asylum seekers and refugees in Eswatini. The study proposes legal, policy, and practice recommendations for bolstering labor market access and resilience for asylum seekers and refugees. Eswatini is already implementing the pledge relating to operationalizing the appeal structures stipulated in the Refugees Act of 2017. However, we have since realized the need to collaborate with legal aid clinics in order to provide legal representation for those rejected by the appeals board. Mr. Chairperson, the Kingdom of Eswatini is pleased to report that following an influx of secondary movement refugees and asylum seekers due to a post-election unrest in one of our neighboring countries, the structures and systems at Malinda Refugee Reception Center were improved. When the influx occurred, the government was not ready for the crisis and there was no available funding. We therefore wish to express our gratitude to all our partners, including the UN family, faith-based organizations, and the private sector that assisted the government during this time. Their support and agility demonstrated that through collaboration, it is important to set up a resilient response system. Chairperson, the government acknowledges the crucial role played by our strategic partners such as UNICEF, who specifically assisted with creating child-friendly spaces within the Refugees Reception Center, and others who assisted with strengthening our water and sanitation systems. The center's security features were improved, and these include the erection of a perimeter fence and sufficient lighting. There's also a transition towards green energy to ensure safe and consistent energy supply. As I conclude, it is a befitting honor to extend our congratulations to Chairperson Grandi on his successful tenure at the helm of ExCom. During this remarkable journey, he made an indelible impact in championing the well-being of displaced persons and galvanizing global action in support of refugees and asylum seekers. We wish him all the best in future endeavors. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I now call on the distinguished representative of Kenya. You have the floor, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chairperson, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Kenya aligns itself with the statement delivered by the distinguished representative of Cote d'Ivoire on behalf of the African Group. Kenya has hosted refugees for over 35 years and currently accommodates over 860,000 persons of concern. This long-standing commitment reflects Kenya's continued role in regional stability and humanitarian response. However, the scale of displacement globally, now exceeding 120 million, highlights the urgent need for the international community to address the root causes of forced displacement. Despite the challenges, Kenya has taken significant steps to strengthen its asylum system and promote refugee inclusion. Key developments include development of the 2025 SIM card registration regulations, allowing refugees to use their IDs to register for mobile phone and financial services, thereby promoting digital and economic inclusion. Education integration, where refugee learners are progressively being integrated into Kenya's national education system. Refugees are being enrolled into the Kenya Social Health Insurance Fund, benefiting on universal health coverage. We have decentralized support where refugee hosting areas have been designated as special municipalities, thus set to deliver inclusive services to both host communities and refugees. In addressing statelessness, Kenya has taken concrete steps to address this issue, and we have naturalized formerly stateless communities of the Pemba, Shona, and Makonde. And in 2024, the country joined the Global Alliance to End Statelessness. Building on these gains, in early 2025, Kenya launched the Shirika Plan, a comprehensive development-focused framework aimed at enhancing resilience and self-reliance among refugees and host communities. Although the plan is currently in a transition phase, its success hinges on strong technical and financial backing from the international community on the understanding that shared global responsibility must translate into real, actionable support that strengthens national systems. Excellencies, the 76th session convenes at a moment of extraordinary strain marked by worsening global displacement context, compounded impact of protracted conflicts, reduced resettlement opportunities, and significant aid funding cuts. These challenges are felt in Kenya. For instance, refugee protests have already emerged due to reduced food rations and the implementation of differentiated assistance models, signaling rising frustration and vulnerabilities. Critical sectors like education, water, health, and sanitation have been affected. Cuts in education support, in particular, increase the risk of recruitment of refugee youth by criminal gangs or terrorist groups. These developments not only harm refugee well-being, but also pose long-term risks to public health and regional stability. It is therefore crucial, even amidst the ongoing humanitarian reset and the UN-80 initiative, that we entrench coordinated and durable solutions. Kenya therefore urges for better coordination among humanitarian, development, and peace actors. In particular, Kenya emphasizes on two pillars for achieving sustainable refugee responses. One, support to countries of origin, investment in socio-economic infrastructure and governance reforms to enable safe, dignified, and voluntary return of refugees. Two, support in host countries by empowering refugees through inclusive resilience building programs, guaranteeing meaningful participation in local economies and communities. Kenya reiterates that refugee protection is not only a humanitarian obligation, but also essential for sustainable peace and security in host regions. Therefore, we appeal to partners to invest in infrastructure development within host countries and countries of origin, as well as provide technical support and enhance the capacity of national institutions responsible for refugee management. Excellencies, we emphasize the importance of meeting the objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees, particularly easing pressure on host countries, enhancing refugee self-reliance, and increasing third country solutions and enabling voluntary repatriation. These goals require strengthened multilateralism, predictable financing, and responsibility sharing. Kenya looks forward to the Global Refugee Forum Progress Review in 2025, where it hopes to advance pledges made in 2019 and 2023. We affirm our commitment to collaboration and emphasize the need to reinforce the humanitarian development peace nexus. Consequently, durable refugee solutions will be achieved through global cooperation and an integrated approach to shared challenges. Excellency Mr. Gandhi, High Commissioner for Refugees, on behalf of the government of Kenya, I extend our heartfelt congratulations on your distinguished tenure and leadership at UNHCR. We deeply appreciate your advocacy and consistent engagement with Kenya over the years, particularly in relation to the Shirika Plan, which stands as a testament to your legacy. In conclusion, Kenya reaffirms her unwavering commitment to the protection of refugees and stateless persons. The country urges the international community to match this commitment with practical and sustained support grounded in solidarity and shared responsibility. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Qatar, Ambassador.
السيد الرئيس، السيد المفوض السامي.
Chairperson, High Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, may the peace of God accompany you. My country's delegation subscribes to the statements by the groups to which we belong. We wish to recognize the significant efforts made by Mr. Filippo Grandi, who has led HCR for 10 years now, making a remarkable contribution to strengthening and enhancing refugee protection and humanitarian action. We wish him every success in his future endeavors. The figures cited by HCR reflect a worrying reality. The number of displaced persons has gone beyond 2 million. Over 1 million of them refugees. No wonder there is a financing gap, and we must strengthen international cooperation to overcome the pressing needs and to support host countries to find sustainable solutions for refugees. Peace and an end to hostilities is the best way to end the suffering of millions of displaced persons and refugees globally. Qatar condemns the genocide, the famine, and the forced displacement by the Israeli occupiers against the Palestinian people in Gaza. We call on the international community to assume its responsibilities and take urgent measures so that the occupying power ends its offensive. To ensure peace and stability in the Middle East, it is crucial to end the Israeli occupation and establish an independent Palestinian state in the 1967 borders with its capital in East Jerusalem. We uphold the right of the Palestinian people and for HCR to address the needs of the millions of Palestinian refugees. The just cause of the Palestinians deserves to be supported. We are strengthening our strategic partnership with HCR. The first high-level strategic dialogue between the two parties was held last May. It sought to strengthen cooperation and address the challenges related to refugees and IDPs. We signed 3 agreements. The first for $8 million to support HCR's budget 2026. The second for $3 million for Syrian refugees in Jordan, and the third to support 2,500 people in Yemen for a total of $423 million. Our country always efficiently contributes to hosting refugees and IDPs and alleviating their suffering. We make diplomatic efforts and mediation efforts. In Ukraine, we have signed with HCR an agreement for $5 million to rehabilitate social infrastructures and are making efforts to reunite Ukrainian children with their families. Our efforts have brought about the return of 107 children to their families, and we have also been able to arrange the signing of an agreement between the government of the DRC and the M23 movement. We have inaugurated the town of Amal in the north of Syria to give refuge to people affected by the crisis. In Sudan, we have a fund for development and have launched a humanitarian initiative so that 2,000 families can be supported. In October 2024, we signed an agreement with HCR for $2 million to give essential assistance in South Sudan to approximately 240,000 families who had fled the conflict in Sudan. We commit to supporting shared values and strengthening partnerships to support human dignity and find sustainable solutions for refugees and IDPs everywhere. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Angola. Madam Director.
Angola tiene la
Angola, you have the floor.
bien proceder.
We will move to the next speaker. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Mozambique. Director General, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairperson, Mr. High Commissioner, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Mozambique aligns itself with the statement delivered by Côte d'Ivoire on behalf of the African Group. My delegation commends the chairperson for the excellent manner in which the proceedings of these sessions are being conducted. We assure you, Mr. Chairperson, of Mozambique's full cooperation and constructive engagement throughout this Executive Committee. We also extend our appreciation to the High Commissioner, Mr. Philippe Grandi, and the UNHCR staff for their tirelessly commitment to assisting refugees and forcibly displaced persons worldwide, especially in this time of increased conflict, climate-related crisis, and complex displacement situation affecting all continents. First of all, we would like to echo the vision presented by the High Commissioner towards practical and innovative response to forced displacement to ensure that refugees and asylum seekers receive protection and the concerns of hosting countries are addressed, considering the right to seek asylum and the principle of non-refoulement. Mozambique currently hosts approximately 25,000 refugees and asylum seekers who are assisted by the government in partnership with UNHCR. We continue to provide shelter, documentation, protection, access to health, education, opportunities for income generation. However, these efforts require significant resources and pose considerable stress to countries with fragile economy. We therefore join our voices with UNHCR in calling upon the international community, donors, and development partners to increase funding in support of refugees and asylum seekers and host communities. In addition, Mozambique is addressing the situation of over 632,000 internally displaced persons from the province of Cabo Delgado, encouragingly with improved security conditions. Over 600,000 people have already returned home. And we are grateful for the vital assistance provided by UNHCR and other UN agencies in support of these populations. Mr. Chairperson, allow me to refer once again to the intervention of the High Commissioner and highlight the need for sustainable response to forced displacement in a perspective that leads to durable solutions with emphasis to the country of origin and country of asylum. In this regard, Mozambique will continue to support voluntary repatriation and local integration, and we stand ready to work closely with UNHCR, the international community, and regional organizations to ensure that solutions are at the center of refugee and displacement response strategies. Mozambique reaffirms its support for UNHCR's focus on solutions and calls on all partners to work together to turn this vision into reality. To conclude, Mr. High Commissioner, Mozambique is honored to have been working with you and we wish you all the best in the next tasks. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Spain, Ambassador. Thank you, Chairperson, Ambassador. Distinguished Chair and High Commissioner, Spain aligns with the statements delivered by Denmark on behalf of a large number of European countries. In my national capacity, I wish to express thanks to the High Commissioner for 10 years of service. His leadership has been unflagging and courageous in this decade marked by unprecedented crises. We also pay tribute to the staff of HCR and partners on the ground. Their work is often in extreme conditions and clearly demonstrates that international solidarity is not just an aspiration, it is a reality that saves lives. We're living through unprecedented attacks on the multilateral system and the foundations of international law. Spain is clear that the international protection system with the 1951 Convention and its protocol as pillars is not in crisis. The crisis affects our collective capacity to protect it. We uphold multilateralism as the framework for shared solutions, bringing together peace, development, and human rights. For Spain, humanitarian diplomacy is the most noble activity of international action, preventing conflict, alleviating suffering, and bringing solutions. We must prioritize in ethical and sustainable terms, always placing displaced persons and refugees at the center. Spain promotes a positive, constructive vision. Our society has shown its commitment to refugees. Through private contributions, our citizens have been among the most generous in the world towards supporting HCR. The government has strengthened our asylum policy and increased our flexible contributions, reflecting a fundamental value. Solidarity is a symbol of Spain's identity within and outside our borders. The Compact on Migration and Asylum of the EU is an agreement that Spain firmly promotes and which encompasses shared responsibility, allowing us to manage migration flows in a more orderly, caring and respectful way. Our president recently recalled that human dignity is always at the center of our responses. Spain implements this and brings this spirit to the committee: more cooperation, more solidarity, and unbreakable commitment to the right to asylum. The High Commissioner has recalled that focusing only on borders does not bring lasting solutions. Spain fully shares this vision. The roadmap supporting people from the place of origin in transit and integration is key. We believe in self-sufficiency. Refugees must have real tools to rebuild their lives, access to education, employment, and public services. Inclusion is the best and most effective way of protection, strengthening the resilience of the host communities as well. Spain's commitment to gender equality is key to our policies in asylum and international protection and in cooperation with partners. Refugee women and girls face specific risks, gender-based violence, trafficking, and what they need is to participate on equal footing in humanitarian decisions that affect them. Thus, we provide shelter places to lone women, women with children, and victims of violence, and encourage their participation. We uphold the protection of people persecuted for sexual orientation or identity and those suffering multiple discrimination. The gender-based approach, the diversity approach, and inclusion are key to our policies, making sure that no one is left behind. This year, we launched the Seville Plan to support multilateralism, providing refuge and reform as keys to revitalizing multilateralism. It interlinks with the UNHCR plan and the Humanitarian New Start, where HCR plays a central role. These initiatives must not remain on paper. They must lead to a more coherent, efficient, sustainable humanitarian action. The next review of the Global Forum in December will be a decisive occasion to show that these commitments are being fulfilled and broadened. We reiterate our commitment to HCR, international protection and solidarity. Our asylum system will continue to be strengthened to integrate refugees in Spain, and we will continue to uphold cooperation. The candidacy of Arantxa González Laya as a candidate to the post of High Commissioner is presented by Spain. She has extensive experience in leadership and public management, international relations, multilateral diplomacy, and humanitarian affairs, having managed many important posts in this respect. In conclusion, a more personal note, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the High Commissioner for almost 40 years of service to the international community and all of us, and that deserves special thanks. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The next speaker on the list is the distinguished representative of the Republic of Moldova, Ambassador.
Distinguished Chair, High Commissioner, dear delegates, the Republic of Moldova aligns with the statement of the group of European like-minded countries delivered by Denmark. Let me first express our profound appreciation to you, High Commissioner Grandi, for your frank and straightforward assessment about the global refugee crisis, which now surpasses the level of 122 million refugees. The causes which are making people to leave their homes are different and complex, while leadership to find solutions and resources is getting increasingly scarce. In this regard, we genuinely hoped and welcomed the ongoing diplomatic efforts to bring a sustainable peace to Gaza and wider Middle East. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, we hope the agreement signed in Washington and Doha earlier this year will be put in practice. The situation in Sudan requires continued urgent attention of the international community. Meanwhile, we welcome that refugees from Syria have started to return home and hope that the country will advance on its path of recovery and reconstruction. Dear High Commissioner, my country, the Republic of Moldova, has never really been a destination for refugees. This has changed in February 2022, with the beginning of Russia's illegal, unprovoked, and unjustified war of aggression against Ukraine. To date, over 130,000 refugees from Ukraine have been recorded in the Republic of Moldova, while more than 81,000 of them are currently benefiting from the temporary protection. Over the years, we switched from emergency mode to sustainable responses, which help refugees but also invest in the hosting communities. In Moldova, UNHCR is building an alliance of cities of solidarity, which help integrate refugees into the local and social economic life. National public authorities are also working closely to implement the national program of the phased integration of foreigners, including displaced persons from Ukraine for period 25-27. This document formalizes the transition from emergency response to long-term inclusion in national systems. I know this is expected from our country, a hosting country. We aim to ensure access to education, healthcare, labor market, housing, culture, and social protection. It focuses on creating inclusive integration mechanisms that protect most vulnerable groups: children, women, persons with disabilities. Many actions do not have yet financial coverage in this program, so we will work closely with development partners in this regard. An important lifeline for refugees residing in Moldova was and remains the direct cash assistance implemented through the UNHCR. As Moldova, together with its partners, is working on long-term solutions to support inclusion and integration of refugees, that direct cash assistance program remains an important element of burden sharing. However, the current funding gap has already cut significantly into the support received by refugees, both in terms of numbers covered and the amount received per person. We note with concern that the regional refugee response plan is only 20% funded. Currently, we're facing further significant reductions in cash assistance or even potential suspension if the necessary resources are not identified. Now, ahead of the winter, as we observe new arrivals of vulnerable refugees, this type of support remains critical. Therefore, we're very grateful to the countries who have been so far providing funds to help Ukrainian refugees in Moldova and make an urgent appeal to continue allocating the necessary resources. We, of course, are looking with great hope to all the mediation efforts aimed at bringing just and sustainable peace to Ukraine. At this stage, the prospects for peace seems to be far away. In this context, Moldova is currently working on prolongation of the temporary protection mechanism beyond March 2026. Dear High Commissioner, we appreciate your visits to Moldova earlier this year and your continued advocacy, which helped mobilize support of the international community to sustain the refugee response. I hope and I trust that you and your team continue to take this as a priority. Mr. Chairperson, this year in December, the Global Refugee Forum progress review will take place. The Republic of Moldova is reiterating its commitment to refugee protection and integration, aligning with the objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees. On the issue of statelessness, let me acknowledge the results achieved in the framework of the I Belong campaign. Now the Global Alliance needs to carry work forward, and we commend UNHCR assistance in this regard. Moldova stands ready to share its experience in eradicating statelessness with interested countries. Dear High Commissioner, UNHCR, as the entire humanitarian sector, is passing through a very difficult period. We acknowledge your efforts and to adjust the organization to the new painful reality. UNHCR needs to come out of this major challenge as an agile organization capable to provide rapid responses, but also expertise and long-term solutions. So to continue being able to help those in need, UNHCR needs our support now. Also, on a personal note, I would say, dear High Commissioner, you are leaving very big shoes to fill. So we appreciate your personal commitment and your tireless efforts and work on the front line. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Lithuania. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Lithuania fully aligns itself with the statement delivered by Denmark on behalf of the group of like-minded European states. I would like to make the following remarks in my national capacity. And I would like to begin by thanking the High Commissioner for his insightful statement. And I know that there will be some other occasions, but I want to take this opportunity to express to Mr. Grandi our true appreciation for his leadership during these 10 years. We very highly value the activities of UNHCR in guaranteeing international protection and safeguarding the rights and well-being of all refugees, displaced and stateless people. Lithuania is a strong supporter of UNHCR, and it can count on our continued cooperation and support. We are committed to the protection of refugees, especially those escaping conflict and persecution in their countries of origin. We recognize the increased protection challenges faced by refugees, particularly women, children, persons with disabilities, and other forcibly displaced persons in vulnerable situations. Mr. Chairperson, we appreciate the role of UNHCR in providing assistance to Ukraine during the ongoing Russian aggression. We urge for immediate and unimpeded access for UNHCR and other mandated international bodies to all Ukrainian refugees. We remain extremely concerned about the reports of children from Ukraine being forcefully deported to Russia and Belarus. We support initiatives aimed at seeking to clarify the fate of them all. We welcome the UNHCR 2025-2026 Regional Refugee Response Plan for Ukraine, which also covers activities in Lithuania and is assisting the government of Lithuania to respond to the needs of refugees. Since the beginning of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, more than 93,000 Ukrainians have already received shelter in Lithuania. Currently, almost 50,000 Ukrainian citizens are in Lithuania under temporary protection. These persons benefit from access to accommodation or means to obtain housing, healthcare, education, and access to the labor market. Mr. Chairperson, we are concerned by UNHCR's dire financial situation. In this respect, we welcome UNHCR's efforts and measures already taken in pursuing budget-saving prioritization of activities and revision of programs of UNHCR. We also support the engagement of UNHCR in implementation of the United Nations Secretary General's UN initiative. Mr. Chairperson, I would like to underline the issue of the instrumentalization of migrants for political purposes by the authorities of Belarus since 2021, and more recently by Russia. We are deeply concerned by this inhumane and unacceptable act of using human beings in need to advance political goals and endangering the lives of vulnerable people from third countries. Therefore, Lithuania has filed a case against Belarus at the International Court of Justice regarding the organized smuggling of migrants into Lithuania. And we request the UNHCR, together with other competent international organizations, engage with Belarusian and Russian authorities, urging them to assume their full responsibility in complying with their international legal obligations. Mr. Chairperson, let me assure you that Lithuania is committed to continue supporting UNHCR politically and financially, and actively engage in finding solutions to global refugee-related challenges that we face today. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Chile. Ambassador, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. We align ourselves with GRULEC and in our national capacity, we would like to add the following comments. I would like to begin by expressing our appreciation to Filippo Grandi, the High Commissioner, over the last 10 years. And the times have been complex, and you have reaffirmed with great passion and strength the value of UNHCR and humanitarian assistance to forced displacement. Thank you very much. We lament the loss of lives of humanitarian personnel in different regions of the world. We pay homage to those who dedicated their lives to protecting others. We recall that the protection of civilians is an obligation in any conflict. In the framework of the 75 years of UNHCR and the 80th of the United Nations, the liquidity crisis has accelerated the process of reform. UN80 although it is very urgent to move ahead, the principles of dialogue, transparency, decision-making together are the democratic means and distinctive seals of multilateralism. They must be preserved. Since Geneva, the Center of Humanitarian Multilateralism and Human Humanitarianism and multilateralism we must address the future of the United Nations in the framework of UNHCR. Despite the diversity and difference in political stances, there is middle ground. guiding principles for this process and other reorganization processes. I would like to underscore some. The reorganization of the agency must be governed by the principle of a comprehensive system. It is essential that we keep the systemic view and the shared work with other agencies, programs, and funds, development actors, regional organizations, etc., as these decisions affect the lives of millions of people, communities, and the priorities of the states. We must strengthen coordination between agencies on the multilateral front, regional front, and national front. On this last point, we have seen the importance of the cooperation framework for sustainable development and the resident coordinators' efforts to seek strategic cooperation with UNHCR. Also, the principle of non-discrimination, inclusion, and gender perspective. They must continue to be cross-cutting approaches in the work of the agency. Third, there is a call to maintain experienced personnel with capacity in the institution. And fourth, and lastly, there is a legitimate call for greater information and substantive dialogue in decision making. This is directly linked to the governance system and the agency of the members in decision making. In this context, we lament a lack of consensus when it comes to a conclusion on forced displacement and climate change, as well as a global framework. Therefore, we recognize the work of the UNHCR in international protection, assistance, and lasting solutions, in particular, the sustainable responses and eradication of statelessness. We believe that maintaining a cross-cutting intercultural and gender approach, addressing the reality of women and girls and teens that are victims of violence, sexual violence, and communities, including LGBTIQ individuals, is crucial, among others. We are also concerned over the serious reduction of the budget for Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the financing for solutions for 2026. UNHCR support in our region has been essential. It has shown a positive impact of the triple nexus. This reduction can negatively affect millions of people, communities, civil society, refugees, and others. Lastly, we underscore the leadership in the Cartagena process that is focused on the people that have been displaced and that are stateless. In Latin America, the Caribbean, with the Plan of Action Chile 2024-2034, this is the first year where we'll see the follow-up and coordination meeting. The region agreed on 15 priorities for the biennium. In November, we will hold the first support platform meeting. We invite donors and civil society or leaders, as well as refugee organizations, academia, the private sector, development and financing agencies, UN agencies. We invite them all to cooperate in concrete actions aimed at these priorities. As you know, forced displacement has significantly increased in my region over the last decade. This is the product of organized crime, violence, conflict, natural disasters, and the negative effects of climate change. For this reason, since the Cartagena process, we have been strengthening actions to bring international protection, assistance, and lasting solutions. Allow me to conclude recalling that behind every policy number and program, there's a person with dreams and rights that must be protected. As Gabriel Mistral, our Nobel Prize winner, said, the pain of each should hurt us all. We call for human rights-based assistance and support with effective and sustainable solutions. I thank you kindly. Thank you very much. We will now hear from the High Commissioner to respond to that which we've heard from the delegations. The floor is yours, sir.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Address briefly the statements of two different groups. First, MICTA, they spoke through Korea. Thank you. I think MICTA is an interesting body or group because it includes, from our point of view, countries not only from different continents, but also playing different roles in respect of displacement and refugees. Important donor countries are part of MICTA, important host countries, important resettlement countries. So you span this group spans across the range of our work, and your statement expressed support, which I interpret goes to all aspects of our work. So thank you very much for sharing these views. And likewise, for the groups, Friends of the Charter, that spoke through Venezuela, I would like to thank this group of countries for expressing support, not only from the Charter, but also for UNHCR's mandate. I appreciate that, like a few other delegations, mention was made by this group of the importance of climate, or the impact that climate has on displacement. It is a very important point that we should not forget. So thank you for mentioning it. The group also mentioned the importance of addressing the needs of Palestinians. Of course, I absolutely agree. taking into account, however, the division of labor between UNRWA and UNHCR and the fact that Palestinian refugees in the areas of operation of UNRWA are not under the mandate of UNHCR, but in principle, I subscribe very much with that statement. I'll move to Europe now with an apology. Yesterday, at the last round of responses, I did not respond to Malta. So I will respond now to apologize for this omission, which was absolutely by mistake, my mistake. I take responsibility. It is not, Malta is a small country having a big geographical role. So I would be very remiss if I did not flag how big the challenges are for Malta, being on, right in the middle of the routes, of the migratory routes from North Africa towards Europe. And we have been working with Malta, as was mentioned, for many years to try to address these challenges, ranging from rescue at sea to systems of reception in Europe. And Malta has often been the door to that. I hope that the implementation of the European Pact on Migration and Asylum will be of support to Malta. I appreciate that the mention that was made of the route-based approach, because investing upstream of, as I've said many times, is really the response to that. And thank you very much to Malta for its effort to provide financial contributions at this difficult time. So I caught up from yesterday's mistake. And going to today's statements and staying with Europe, many thanks to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia for an important statement, I think. I really appreciate the way you explained how you are dealing with the refugees, especially those that have arrived recently in the past couple of years. We have been with you in this response. We'll continue to be with you in spite of the difficulties, but I think your choice to embark right away on a mid and long term strategy to support this group through what we would call sustainable responses is very exemplary, and really a model that I hope others will follow from the beginning of an emergency situation. I believe that the regular meeting of the global concessional financing facility, which is the World Bank instrument for middle-income countries hosting refugees, which has been used in Armenia. The annual meeting will take place in Yerevan, and it's also symbolic of a recognition of the efforts made by Armenia in this respect. Thank you very much for mentioning that. Saludo a España.
I would like to offer my greetings to Spain. I hail them as a great champion of multilateralism. We heard this, we heard as much in the statement this morning. I completely agree. The crisis is not a crisis of multilateralism, but rather of our capacity and our will to defend it. Thank you very much, Spain. Thank you for that very important statement. Thank you also for having translated that will into contributions, meaningful contributions, not just public, but private as well. Spain with UNHCR has a partnership. Our sister organization in Spain is one of the primary contributors to flexible funds, and that's very important for us. Thank you very much. And in a broader sense, thank you for your commitment. We see that in the Seville plan that the ambassador mentioned as well. And the best of luck for the Spanish candidacy for the High Commissioner's post.
I want to say a few words about Moldova, which, as was mentioned, witnessed or was the theater of a refugee situation, which I feel I followed personally from day one, or maybe day 5, when I first went to Moldova, to witnessing the dramatic arrival of thousands and thousands of Ukrainian refugees. And I have really been privileged to follow the evolution of this response from the beginning. Last year I think it was last year or the year before, I can't remember, but we were very honored to give to the people of Moldova a special mention during the Nansen ceremony for their generosity and openness in receiving Ukrainian refugees. I have seldom seen such generosity in any country. So thank you very much. I want to applaud it once more. And second, your call for continuous donor support. The crisis is not over. Moldova continues to need support. And I appeal in particular to European donors not to forget that very urgent need. Lithuania is also an important host of Ukrainian refugees. We heard almost 100,000 went through, but 50,000 still in the country, a small country, so it's quite a huge responsibility. And I want to really commend Lithuania for the work that it does in this respect, for the support that also it provides to UNHCR at large. You mentioned the complex question of potential pressures on other countries through migratory pressures, and I've already mentioned that. We stand ready, UNHCR stands ready, and I think I can speak for IOM as well, in assisting all countries involved, as you mentioned, in this particular situation. We hope, of course, that the pact, implementation of the pact, will help address these phenomena, but we stand ready to dialogue with all countries concerned and provide assistance, technical assistance, as needed. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you to Chile as well. Thank you for your support in general. And in particular, thank you for having organized the Cartagena Plus 40 conference. It was very important. I was very honored to be present at that conference. It was a conference that created an important framework, I think very important framework in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean, an exchange of thoughts on issues of displacement, as you mentioned, and the matters of international protection, solutions, coordination between countries. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for the leadership, Chile.
Gracias.
Thank you also for having reiterated principles of multilateralism as well. That's also important. I completely agree with Chile's position on many things, but in particular on the importance of maintaining the gender-based approach. We will keep that approach. Despite all the difficulties, we will do so. Thank you very much, Chile.
Angola didn't speak. Kenya spoke about significant advances. They detailed very concretely 4 or 5 steps that they have taken recently to include refugees in their communities. Everybody knows here how much value I attach to Kenya's effort, which have been translated into the very famous by now Shirika plan. It was mentioned in the statement. I want to recall what President Ruto told me when we agreed to launch this plan several years ago. He said, I spent some political capital to do this, but you have to help me mobilize international resources to implement the plan. So I know that we have mobilized. Many of you have been supportive. Thank you very much. World Bank and others have been. Please continue that commitment, because that is a very important initiative in Africa and beyond. And thank you, Kenya, also for again being a champion on reducing statelessness. Eswatini made a very important point, I think, in highlighting that giving priority to life-saving activities, which sometimes we have to do because of the financial situation, does not mean that we should neglect livelihoods. You know, first you save lives, but then if you don't provide livelihoods, what is the quality of the lives that you save? And I think this is the spirit in which the sustainable responses are crafted. Thank you for recalling that, reminding us of that. And thank you for also the improvements that you have reported in spite of the difficulties that you have made to your own system to receive new refugees as you have received recently. Thank you for letting us know. Mozambique is both a country hosting refugees, but on a larger scale, I would say, and as was mentioned, is a country which is the theater of very large internal displacement. I saw it myself beginning of last year in my visit to Mozambique. I could go to Cabo Delgado and see the situation. I am very happy that you reported, as we know, that thanks to improvements in the security environment, you have been able to create conditions for many of those displaced people to return home. And I wish you all the best in these efforts to continue to stabilize the northern part of the country, because that's indispensable to find solutions to displaced people. We have less resources than before, for sure, but we will continue to help within our capacity in this important effort. I really hope I'm not forgetting. No, Qatar. Qatar is yes. Yes. With the time passing, I'm messing up my paper. Sorry. Qatar, thank you very much. Your call for peace, I think, is meaningful in two ways. One, because we all want to call for peace. That's the most important way to respond to displacement and to many other things. But second, because Qatar not only calls for peace as a declaration, but has become one of the key mediators, may I say like that, in many different conflicts. And I think this is what we need to do. I spoke about humanitarian diplomacy in my opening statement, but humanitarian diplomacy is just the beginning. It's political diplomacy that we need to restore, and Qatar is giving the example. In particular, I am very, of course, I've been following closely efforts to mediate between the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and M23. This is one of the several mediation processes taking place in Doha. UNHCR stands ready to cooperate for the areas of its competence to that particular program. And thank you, Qatar, for helping us in many complex situations where other countries hesitate to intervene. I'm thinking of Afghanistan. You have been a protagonist in also helping humanitarians have space and have resources. I was happy that we had our first strategic dialogue this year. And I hope that it will be also the premise for continuous financial support to UNHCR. Did I forget? No, Armenia, I replied, yes. I replied Armenia. I'm sorry about my lack of tidiness, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. High Commissioner. Continuamos con la...
We will continue now with our speakers list. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Costa Rica. Ambassador, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. Allow me, Chairman, to commend you for having been elected to this post and congratulate you as well for the excellent work that you're offering. Costa Rica aligns itself with the statement from GRULAC. We also appreciate this session. It's an opportunity to reflect at a time when the challenges of forced displacement, together with the financial limitations and limitations in the sustainability of the humanitarian system, force us or compel us to rethink our practices and our priorities. Allow me to begin by expressing our appreciation to the High Commissioner, Filippo Grandi, a great friend of multilateralism, a defender of the system, and a friend of our region and of Costa Rica. Your leadership over the last decade has been essential in a context of multiple crises and growing complexity. Your voice has recognized on Monday with firmness and humanity that the principles that inspire the international protection are not passing concessions, but rather they are the foundations of human dignity, consolidated and built by the states over decades. Chairman, High Commissioner, dear colleagues, we are facing today a global scenario marked by armed conflict, persistent violence, the increasing impact of climate change, and the actions and activities of criminal activities that make money off of vulnerability of those seeking protection. These factors have led to human displacement without precedent in its scale, velocity, and complexity. Given this panorama, Costa Rica reaffirms that the international framework for protection continues to be enforced and is more necessary than ever. This framework requires fair and efficient systems that can guarantee protection to those who need it. We must maintain confidence in the international and multilateral system. It is in this context that we see the strength of a relaunch of the humanitarian system, not to rebuild what we've built, but to reinvigorate it. We need to focus on the essential and ensure that the resources directly reach the communities on the ground, the people that most need them. This rethinking of things also requires consistency. We need a humanitarian system that dialogues in a more fluid manner with the actors and promoting sustainable development that is also inclusive, a system that avoids duplicity and redundancy and that promotes synergy between organizations, states, agencies, regional mechanisms, and civil society, and in particular, a system that puts innovation at the service of people, with a protection for individuals, of refugees at the center of the mandate. It is along these lines that the humanitarian system must be focused on peace and lasting solutions. International protection cannot be addressed in an isolated manner. It is tied to the prevention of crises, sustainable development, host communities, and the promotion of human rights. As we see progress in peace building and lasting solutions, it will also be possible to give way to conditions for safe, voluntary, and sustainable return. That contributes to the development and stability of states. It is with these convictions, Chairman, that Costa Rica welcomes the fact that in recent years we have made progress in the right direction. Among other things, we have done so through the commitments taken on in the Global Forum for Refugees. This is a framework for translating promises to actions. Regionally, through our pro-temporary presidency of MIPS, we have protected socioeconomic structures and displacement as a result of disasters. On the national front, we have also contributed to this transformation through our national framework for response to refugees in Costa Rica. This brings together and articulates all public institutions to bring protection and inclusion of refugees. In our economy and in our communities, we seek thus to make sure that our obligation as a state becomes a win-win scenario. We want to turn tragedy into a mutual benefit. Costa Rica believes firmly in multilateralism. We learn from it, we act upon it, and the idea is that despite skepticism of some, this continues to be essential as a space for dialogue, cooperation, and a collective search for solutions. With this conviction, we also celebrate and hail the leadership of Filippo. We appreciate his support for this humanitarian relaunch with an effort to strengthen coordination, particularly with local organizations that are on the front line in our responses. I know that I've gone over time, but I have to pay homage as well to all of the staff members of UNHCR who have lost their work and that have been helping us for decades, protecting the people that need them. A humble homage from yours truly and my delegation and my country to those who find themselves right now out of work, facing challenges when they were the ones that were on the first line to protect our refugees. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Saudi Arabia. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, Mr. High Commissioner, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to seize this opportunity to extend my thanks and appreciation to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Mr. Filippo Grandi, for his distinguished efforts in steering the work of UNHCR and his valuable contributions in supporting matters of refugees and humanitarian response throughout his mandate. And we commend his efforts and the cooperation on all levels and the close partnership with the kingdom. And we wish him all success in the period to come. And we support and commend the generosity by the host countries and local communities that to provide help and support in an unprecedented atmosphere and an unprecedented rise in the number of refugees and displaced persons worldwide. This session comes at the critical time in which international crises have risen, and with them the complex challenges that face humanitarian action at a time when we witness an unprecedented decline in humanitarian funding, as opposed to a rise in the numbers of refugees and the forcefully displaced persons that have reached around 120 million persons worldwide, which stresses the magnitude
in Lebanon. Korea has also implemented ODA projects that integrate humanitarian assistance with development perspectives in line with the HDP nexus. In addition, Korea has expanded durable solutions for refugees, including resettlement and higher education. Around 270 resettled refugees, mainly from Myanmar, are rebuilding their lives in Korea, while refugee students are pursuing studies at Korean universities. Although modest in scale, Korea will continue to support these programs. In this regard, the government of Korea is pleased to announce that in addition to its unearmarked contribution at the beginning of this year, it has decided to provide an additional $32 million in earmarked contributions, including through KOICA, to support UNHCR's vital work this year. Significant portion of these products are provided as multi-year funding, enhancing the predictability of UNHCR's budget. These contributions extend not only to Asia, but also to Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, and Europe, reflecting Korea's commitment to global effort. Meanwhile, Korea welcomes the reform measures being undertaken and continue implementing its commitment. In these difficult times, solidarity is more important than ever. Korea stands together with the UNHCR. In this spirit, my delegation looks forward to welcoming the High Commissioner to Korea next week, which will be another opportunity to strengthen our cooperation. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. You have the floor, sir. Thank you, Chairperson, High Commissioner. I address this room with a sense of historic responsibility. This is the last ExCom under the current leadership of the High Commissioner, who has been at the helm for almost a decade. 10 years marked by unprecedented global challenges, mixed migrant flows, pandemics, ongoing conflicts, the increasing impact of climate change. 10 years under his leadership where we saw better commitment from states towards the global south. HCR has preferred to work with the hegemonic powers rather than confront them, keeping silent in situations where a clear, brave, committed voice was needed. Commissioner, we regret the reduced budget. This certainly limits the capacities of the organization to address in timely, effective fashion to increasing humanitarian challenges. We believe that this experience gives partial context to the deep impact of the unilateral coercive measures on Venezuela. The government saw a reduction of over 99% of national income. Like with HCR, the lack of resources as a block on institutional action with a direct impact on the rights and well-being of the most vulnerable, including refugees who had come to Venezuela. We deeply regret that during this mandate, HCR has not had the institutional strength to address seriously the effect of the UCMs as a root cause of forced displacement. We have repeatedly denounced the way that these criminal measures imposed outside of international law have brought economic damage and forced millions of people to migrate, not because of persecution, but because of deliberate economic asphyxia. And yet, there has not been a line, a report, a condemnation in the reports of the High Commissioner in 10 years. Why? Why speak of, because speaking of the UCMs is inconvenient to those who finance the organization. It is not an option for the peoples or the UN system to have a diplomacy that prefers silence over defending humanitarian principles. Silence has grave humanitarian consequences and political consequences. HCR, by action or omission, has contributed to the manipulation of numbers and seeking to normalize an international humanitarian regime which deliberately confuses migrants and refugees, building artificial narratives of humanitarian crisis like in Venezuela, useful to justify military intervention in the Caribbean and loyalty to the mandate of international protection which has been entrusted to it by the international community. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. El siguiente.
Thank you. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Madagascar. You have the floor, Ambassador. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, High Commissioner, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to make this statement on behalf of the government of Madagascar at this 76th session of the Executive Committee of the High Commissioner's Programme for Refugees. We welcome the holding of this event of major importance for developing strategies and assessing actions undertaken by member states to ensure the international protection of refugees. Madagascar aligns with the statement made by Côte d'Ivoire on behalf of the African Group. Having joined the Convention of 1951 on 18 December 1967, faithful to its international commitments, Madagascar reaffirms its commitment to universal basic principles contained within the Convention, namely the right to asylum and refugee protection. Protecting peoples who are forcibly displaced must be at the heart of our collective action, especially in a world marked by multidimensional crises aggravated by armed conflict, persecution, and the impact of climate change. Cooperation between Madagascar and HCR is constructive and progressive. Here, we wish to point to two items in particular, namely the creation of the National Refugee Bureau under the authority of the Ministry of the Interior, responsible for the administrative management of asylum seekers and refugees in Madagascar, and the establishment of a national legal framework covering protection of refugees and stateless persons through the draft national law on refugees, which is now being agreed among the relevant stakeholders. Recent figures show that 89 people currently have the status of refugee in Madagascar, and there are approximately 1,200 asylum seekers, relatively low figures compared to what we see elsewhere. But the risk of a larger influx of forcibly displaced persons cannot be ignored. As an island state, Madagascar faces climate and socio-economic challenges. It is not far from the zones of conflict and instability on the east coast of Africa and the Indian subcontinent. In this context, we call for increased support from the office from HCR in the following areas: ongoing training, specialized training of stakeholders to give them the necessary tools to provide protection in line with international standards, technical and logistical support to develop refugee reception mechanisms, identification and registration mechanisms that are effective and efficient, support to socioeconomic integration of refugees in the context of vulnerable host communities, and finally, capacity building for the management of IDPs because of the harmful effects of climate change in the south of the country. Madagascar nonetheless remains convinced that the refugee crisis is a human tragedy which transcends national borders. According to HCR data, there were 123.2 million refugees at the end of 2024, and now there are still 122 million. To reduce this alarming figure, all stakeholders, state or non-state, must give greater consideration to the root causes that force people to move out of their country of origin, including armed conflict, persecution, national disasters, poverty, and economic instability. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I take this opportunity to reiterate the commitment of my government to promoting international protection of refugees, including the implementation of the 1951 Geneva Convention, appropriate processing of asylum seekers to obtain refugee status, strengthening of refuge systems, and sustainable solutions for refugees. And last but not least, we wish to express our deep thanks to High Commissioner Filippo Grandi for his commitment and his remarkable achievements in protecting refugees and forcibly displaced persons over his 10 years of mandate. Mr. High Commissioner, we wish you the same success in your future endeavors. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias. El siguiente orador es el distinguido representante de Noruega. Señor embajador, tiene usted la palabra.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is the Ambassador of Norway.
Chair, High Commissioner, colleagues. Norway aligns with the statement of the like-minded European member states. Norway stands here today with a deep respect for UNHCR's mandate and with unwavering solidarity with those forced to flee. As High Commissioner Grandi reminded us, multilateralism is under pressure, yet it has never been more essential. In a world marked by instability and growing displacement, it is imperative that we reaffirm our collective commitment to international law and principled humanitarian action. In this, UNHCR remains as relevant as ever, 75 years after its founding. We therefore echo the concerns about the unprecedented financial pressures affecting UNHCR's budget. We acknowledge the impossible priorities already being made, and we support the ongoing efforts to find and implement bold measures. We particularly appreciate UNHCR's contributions to rethinking the humanitarian architecture and the wider UN system through the humanitarian reset and the UN80 processes. We are ready to join forces to support a leaner, smarter, and more efficient UN. Chair, we continue to see armed conflicts on all continents, resulting in large-scale displacement. The devastating war in Sudan has resulted in the world's largest displacement crisis, both internally and in the neighboring countries. In Ukraine, Russia's illegal war continues unabated, with recent strikes on energy infrastructure, threatening millions of civilians as winter approaches. On a more positive note, the situation in Syria offers a glimpse of hope that large-scale displacement crisis can be overcome if conflict is brought to an end. Norway continues to stress the importance of a comprehensive approach to humanitarian efforts. We need to address the root causes by investing in conflict prevention and resolution, and by insisting on full respect for IHL. Protection must remain the overarching priority for UNHCR's work. Addressing the specific vulnerabilities of women, children, and young people is crucial. We are deeply concerned that funding cuts are having devastating effect on many initiatives to prevent and respond to gender-based violence. Likewise, we stress the importance of protecting LGBTQI+ persons. As cluster lead on protection, UNHCR has a particular responsibility to ensure that protection efforts are not subject to disproportionate cuts. We are encouraged by the High Commissioner's vision of how we together can find practical and innovative approaches within the current framework to address the concerns related to the Asylum Institute. The return of persons without protection needs is important and challenging. We welcome, therefore, that UNHCR is engaging in discussions relating to return, including advice on possible approaches and safeguards. Chair, Norway strongly supports the Global Compact on Refugees and the importance of promoting more equitable burden and responsibility sharing. We will continue to promote and strengthen our own integration policies, aiming at increasing refugees' participation in society and in the labor market. Inclusion is key, not only for the refugees, but for sustainable societies built on trust, cohesion, and opportunities. Last but not least, we welcome the ongoing efforts by UNHCR as part of the Solutions Champions Group on internal displacement. The new institutional setup shows signs of being a good model for stronger interagency cooperation, in line with the ambitions of UN80 and the Humanitarian reset. In conclusion, let me reiterate Norway's strong support to UNHCR. And if I may, High Commissioner, add our gratitude for your very solid leadership and your never-failing personal dedication in the past decade. We encourage all states to take part. In challenging times, we all need to do our part. We encourage all states in position to do so, to exercise good humanitarian donorship by providing predictable funding levels and limit conditionality to enable UNHCR to meet the needs of those most vulnerable. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is the distinguished representative of Tunisia. You, sir, have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me at the outset to extend my congratulations to you for presiding over the proceedings of the 76th session of the Executive Committee, wishing you all success and appreciating your and members of your Bureau's efforts in order to make the previous sessions as well, 92nd, 90, and of the year 92, 93, and 94 of the Standing Committee, the outcomes of which we will discuss in the context of planning UNHCR's work in the period to come. We associate ourselves with the statements of the OIC and the African Group. According to UNHCR statistics on the numbers of refugees and asylum seekers, as well as forcefully displaced, it has reached over 140 million people, which increases the challenges faced by the international community, especially when it comes to efforts aiming to enhance the principle of solidarity between countries and burden sharing in order to alleviate the suffering and to provide international assistance and protection for refugees and asylum seekers by sustainable and creative solutions to provide all necessary means to reduce this challenge and to contribute in achieving SDGs and other relevant goals. My delegation in this respect commends the outcomes of the Second World Refugee Forum in 2023, as well as the framework provided by the World Refugee Charter to carry shoulder responsibility and burden sharing, to stress once again the importance of having clear mechanisms that alleviate the suffering from the economies of host and transition states, and to preserve the dignity and rights of refugees and asylum seekers, especially as the overwhelming majority of those countries suffer in turn from economic
where the needs are greatest, and we remain committed to continue supporting UNHCR in mobilizing flexible funding and encourage all new and traditional donors to join the GRF multi-stakeholder plates on quality funding. On sustainable solutions, Denmark encourages UNHCR to continue to work with member states and other relevant actors, including the entire UN family, to find the best way to lift the burden together. The evidence strongly suggests that refugee self-reliance is the most economical approach to managing refugees, while also being in the best interest of both host communities and refugees themselves. Nevertheless, the practical application remains challenging. Denmark views the strengthening of both asylum and migration management systems as essential. We need to ensure that the protection needs of both refugees and migrants are met, while also ensuring an effective and sustainable return of those without a legal right to stay. We welcome UNHCR's efforts to address legitimate concerns of refugee-receiving countries related to mixed flows of refugees and migrants through implementation of innovative approaches in line with international law. To this end, we underline the importance of cooperation and coherence with the work of other actors, including development actors, host countries, and host communities. Finally, human rights must be at the center of all our efforts, and we appreciate UNHCR's commitment to diversity and inclusivity. An age, gender, and diversity approach is central to providing a truly inclusive and sustainable refugee response. Chair, let me close by expressing our gratitude to all UNHCR staff and its implementing partners for their tireless work, and to the High Commissioner for his dedicated, inspiring, and steady leadership over the past decade. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Croatia. Madam Delegate, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. High Commissioner, Croatia aligns itself with the statement on behalf of the like-minded European states. It is an honor and privilege to address today's gathering as we recognize and account for the tireless humanitarian work of the UNHCR's amidst numerous crises unfolding all around the globe and never higher number of refugees and displaced persons. For more than 7 decades, the UNHCR has stood as a beacon of hope for millions of people who have been forced to flee their homes due to conflicts, persecution, violence, or natural disasters. The agency's commitment to dignity, protection, and preservation of human rights has saved countless lives and has reminded the world of the power of compassion in the face of adversity. Thus, it has never been more paramount for the UNHCR to preserve its courageous and noble endeavor than at this particular moment in time. On behalf of the Republic of Croatia, I wish to extend the heartfelt and deepest gratitude to the High Commissioner for all that he has done while at the helm of the UNHCR over the last 10 years, and the staff and the countless volunteers of the agency who have dedicated themselves to this sublime cause. Their work transcends nationality, culture, and creed. It embodies the very principles upon which the United Nations was founded. As a member state of the EU, the biggest global humanitarian donor, Croatia stands firmly with people in need worldwide, supporting the humanitarian principles which have been in great jeopardy, especially lately. We are deeply concerned about the grave humanitarian situation in numerous crisis settings, from the Middle East, Ukraine to Sudan, Sahel, Myanmar, Afghanistan, DRC, and so forth. In the face of rising geopolitical antagonisms, Croatia calls for respect of the IHL and reminds that all parties are obliged to fully comply with the fundamental humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. All civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected, with special emphasis on persons in vulnerable situations, such as women, children, youth, and persons with disabilities. At the same time, it is paramount to ensure unhindered and free provision of humanitarian assistance to all in need, as well as the safe environment for humanitarian workers. In this regard, we are especially mindful of the extraordinary courage demonstrated by the entire UNHCR staff working in some of the most dangerous and challenging environments on Earth. UNHCR's presence brings not only immediate relief, but also the long-term hope of rebuilding lives, restoring communities, and securing future for generations to come. Today, as we reflect on UNHCR achievements, we must also reaffirm our collective responsibility. Government, civil society, and the international community at large must continue to support the mandate of the UNHCR not only through words of appreciation, but through concrete actions, contributions, and policies that protect refugees and displaced persons all over the world. Croatia is investing significant resources to ensure predictable and flexible funding in order to contribute substantially to the global humanitarian efforts, especially in the context of unprecedented humanitarian financial gap. In 2025, we contributed €2 million to the UNHCR to support the Ukrainian government's priorities for early recovery and resilience building in the energy sector. In total, we have provided €77 million in emergency humanitarian and development assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale Russian aggression. Humanitarian assistance also includes financial support for more than 31,000 Ukrainian refugees who have access to a wide range of social services in Croatia. And this ranks Croatia sixth in the world in terms of humanitarian aid to Ukraine as a share of GDP. But still, we have not forgotten or overlooked other pressing humanitarian crises. In 2025, we continued our multi-year commitment to supporting Syrian refugees through targeted initiatives in Jordan and Lebanon, as well as financially contribute to humanitarian operations in Syria proper. Croatia has further provided €3.75 million in humanitarian assistance to civilian population in Gaza, and we consistently call for the respect for international humanitarian law, protection of civilians, as well as humanitarian personnel, and full humanitarian access. All these efforts reflect Croatia's dedication to humanitarian principles and solidarity with displaced persons worldwide. Mr. Chairperson, the work of the UNHCR and of all of us as global donors is not just about providing shelter or safety. It's about restoring humanity. It's about giving children the chance to grow up, to learn and prosper, families the chance to heal, and societies the chance to rebuild. Let me once more again congratulate the UNHCR on its outstanding humanitarian efforts and assure you of Croatia's steadfast support as you continue your mission. I thank you.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Poland. Mr. Speaker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. High Commissioner. Let me introduce myself. My name is Szymon Hołownia. I'm the Speaker of the Polish Parliament, of the Polish Sejm, and I have the honor to chair our Polish delegation to today's session. First of all, let me say that we as Poland, we totally align with what Denmark and like-minded states just stated in this chamber. And now I will dare to address a little bit more in our national capacity. So first of all, I would like to thank Mr. High Commissioner, and all of UNHCR staff for what you are doing in this difficult world. I know that right now during this session you are trying to prescribe the medicines, prescribe the curation for the crisis, for the challenging time we are facing right now on so many levels. But let me say that if we are discussing the treatment, first we should try to make a proper diagnosis why we are in this situation under those very circumstances. I think that, you know, in 5 years or 10 years, we faced more crises than through decades. Look like how big multi-crisis we faced in the last years. It's climate change in the full-blown, migrational crisis, financial crisis, COVID pandemic, and war in Ukraine, all together. And it's absolutely obvious that after such an intense feelings they created, these crises created, there will be the thing I'm calling for myself pandemic of fear spread through the world. Pandemic of fear, especially on our northern and western hemisphere. Pandemic of fear, lack of openness. Openness of the hearts, openness of the wallets. Look at United Nations, how often they are right now divided nations. DN instead of UN. We are trying to be so close to each other, but fear prevails. But one thing does not change: human nature. People are afraid, but they still want to be a part of a success story. Hope sells better than fear. When they will raise their heads above all of this mess in social media, when they are with their kids trying to put them to sleep every evening, every night, they don't want to be bad. They want to be good, to love, to share. We saw it in Poland. In Poland, we have this experience of being donor country when it comes to humanitarian help, for the refugees as well, but also a receiver of the help. After this full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, we adopted 3 million Ukrainian refugees to our very homes, to our society. 3 million of them. 1 million is still staying in our country, building our common better future together. I think that in this time of crisis, it's the time of the biggest chance. Actually, not only the crisis, the biggest chance possible. We should stay tall through it all. We should know and remember that tough times create stronger organizations. You are, my ladies and gentlemen, you are not working in damage control in this world. You are working in the hope industry. We all, NGOs, organizations, states, will be lost if we will be considered only like a bottomless pit, money pit. There will be always a huge amount of suffering in this world. And of course, when we cannot trust so much on these and other politicians, not Polish politicians, we quadrupled our payments to UNHCR. Doesn't matter, war in Ukraine, we were still paying, and we will be paying more for Sudan, Armenia, Syria, other crises, because we think that this is our responsibility. But we have to show people success story. You know, working all together. We have network NGOs. We have worked more with the business, make them proud that we are working together under this logo, because this logo, this blue logo, believe me, it's still in so many parts of the world the sign of hope, the ray of light in the hopelessness. Make funding system more diverse, and this means more stable. This is the paradox. I was a founder of 2 NGOs, and I know that this is the paradox, that sometimes the only way of being for huge organizations is to have the mindset of the smaller one, the hungry one, to be hungry, to contact people, to work with people, to bring the success stories to our donors. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say that it's a great honor to stay in front of you in the name of my country, Poland, today, because it's a great chance for me to show all the appreciation for your work. Doesn't matter if you are paying 1 penny or millions of dollars. Imagine me, I've been there like you were, probably all of you. I was a field worker, and I know that this 1 penny could be 1 tear less on the face of the child somewhere in the world. It could be 1 less sleepless night in the life of the refugee who is fleeing for months or even for years, far away from his town, far away from his country. It's not a spending, the money we are giving for refugees. It's an investment. It's an investment in our own humanity, in the better, safe, more stable world. Please, let us all be always proud of it. Let us always be proud of it, what we are doing here in this amazing organization, what we are doing together. I'm a great believer in what United Nations and especially UNHCR could do in this contemporary world. And let me tell you that Poland is proud because it's part of an amazing story which UNHCR is telling to millions of people every day, everywhere in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, really, the biggest respect for everything you are doing. Thank you so much. In my own name, but also in name of my Republic of Poland, my countrymen, my government, my parliament. Thank you so much, and please remember, we are not damage control. We are hope industry. Hope sells better than fear. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Slovenia. You have the floor, madam.
Mr. Chairperson, at the outset, allow me to thank you for successfully guiding this session. Slovenia aligns itself with the statement delivered by Denmark on behalf of like-minded European states and wishes to add several remarks in its national capacity. We thank High Commissioner Grandi for his profound reflections at this pivotal juncture. After nearly 4 decades of service, his voice carries the weight of experience and moral clarity. Slovenia deeply appreciates his leadership as well as the tireless efforts of the UNHCR staff, often under the most difficult and dangerous conditions. Today, we face an alarming erosion of trust in multilateralism, rising hostility towards humanitarian principles, and an unprecedented scale of forced displacement. At the same time, financial resources are shrinking drastically, with direct and painful consequences for the protection and well-being of refugees, the resilience of host communities, and the variability of UNHCR to carry out its mandate. Slovenia cannot overstate its appreciation for UNHCR work and its invaluable contribution to the global humanitarian response. In this difficult environment, we reaffirm our strong support for UNHCR and our commitment to solidarity, responsibility sharing, and principled humanitarian action. Turning to regional crises, we remain gravely concerned about the devastating war and increasingly dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, the crisis in Sudan, where conflict threatens millions, Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine, and other conflicts and crises, such as in Afghanistan, Yemen, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Myanmar, among others. Slovenia has stepped up its financial and political support to humanitarian responses, but above all calls for silencing the guns. adherence to international law, in particular international humanitarian law, and unimpeded humanitarian access. Mr. Chairperson, Slovenia was an active participant in the second Global Refugee Forum and has already implemented many of its pledges. In particular, I'm pleased to announce that Slovenia is of this year a state party to the 1961 Convention on the Reduction of Statelessness. Furthermore, Slovenia recently joined also Global Alliance to End Statelessness and stands ready to contribute actively to its work. Mr. Chairperson, Slovenia remains committed to working hand in hand with UNHCR, partners, and affected communities. We believe that generosity of host countries must be matched by international solidarity. We believe that efforts for peace are never in vain, for only peace can transform displacement into return, reintegration, and dignity. And we believe that multilateralism, inclusive and principled, is the only way to confront today's crisis. If we truly believe in human dignity for all, then we must build a world that enables lives, not threatens them. We must show that cooperation is stronger than fragmentation and that justice is stronger than impunity. We must embrace our shared responsibility to uphold humanity, development, and international law, for this is what binds us together as a global community. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the distinguished representative of Bangladesh, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, High Commissioner, Mr. Grandi, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly congratulate Mr. Filippo Grandi, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, on successful completion of his 10-year tenure. We highly commend his remarkable service and leadership throughout these years in advancing our shared humanitarian cause. I wish him well. We also greatly appreciate his entire team for their relentless work. Mr. Chair, the Geneva Convention 1949 is in its more than 7-decade-long journey, but we are encountering horrific accounts of violations of international humanitarian law and international human rights law across the world. Protracted refugee situations are seriously undermining development trajectory of developing countries that host the majority of global refugees and forcibly displaced people. In this backdrop, enhanced international cooperation and concrete demonstration of global solidarity and commitment have become even more important. The Global Refugee Forum Progress Review meeting due in December this year will hopefully encourage states and all stakeholders to reaffirm and scale up their cooperation and commitment to humanitarian action. Mr. Chair, it is deeply concerning that forced displacements caused by climate change are making up a growing share of refugees and displaced people and statelessness globally. Extreme weather and climate events are occurring more often and with greater intensity than ever before. In 2023, over 70% of world's refugees and displaced people came from the most climate vulnerable countries. In parallel, a notable percentage of forcibly displaced people living in areas highly vulnerable to climate change without adequate access to sustainable resources or resilience to its impacts. Amid various worrisome developments, the High Commissioner's emphasis on the Strategic Plan for Climate Action 2024-2030 to accelerate the advocacy for protection and solutions for its stakeholders is something reassuring. We appreciate the launch of UNHCR's Climate Resilience Fund for enhancing adaptation and resilience of both forcibly displaced people and their host communities. We also appeal to the international community to establish a separate climate fund only dedicated for the refugee situations. This initiative would help ease the suffering of refugees that are most vulnerable to climate change and environmental degradation. It will also serve as a timely complement to UNHCR's sustainable programming. Mr. Chair, UNHCR and the international community must renew their focus on durable solutions. Otherwise, providing adequate humanitarian assistance and protection to 123 million refugees and forcibly displaced people will be challenging in a resource-constrained future. In light of this, addressing root causes of forced displacement remains a key priority. Additionally, UNHCR's continued leadership in forming strategic partnership with pertinent stakeholders is of utmost importance. Mr. Chair, Bangladesh has been hosting over 1.3 million forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals, known as Rohingyas, for years on humanitarian grounds despite our own economic and climate change vulnerabilities. 32,000 newborn are being added additionally to this number every year. On top of these, 150,000 forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals have recently entered our territory fleeing recent escalation of conflict in the Rakhine state. Despite many constraints our humble capacity, we are providing them with necessary humanitarian assistance, including primary and secondary education. Besides, we have built from our own resources spacious camps with modern facilities in a place called Bhashanchor. We expect concerted international support to our efforts. Mr. Chair, as we sympathize with the forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals living in Bangladesh on humanitarian grounds, we must also emphasize on a practical and durable solution without adding to the vulnerabilities of their host country, Bangladesh. I thank the High Commissioner for stressing on durable solutions in his speech. The solution to the Rohingya crisis lies in its origin. The realization of their right to return can be a starting point for securing their basic rights and gradual integration into the Myanmar society. We call on international partners, regional countries, including ASEAN, and concerned UN agencies to play assistive role within their mandates to help create better conditions in Rakhine and promote greater confidence among the forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals for return to their home country. In this regard, I refer to the high-level plenary meeting on Rohingya crisis at the United Nations General Assembly held in September 2025, pursuant to its resolution adopted earlier this year. We draw the Executive Committee's attention to the 7-point resolution of the Honorable Chief Advisor of the Interim Government of Bangladesh, Dr. Muhammad Yunus, which include, inter alia, devising a practical roadmap for safe and dignified repatriation, ending violence against the Rohingyas and starting their sustainable repatriation, mobilizing international support to stabilize Rakhine and placing international civilian presence to monitor stabilization, mobilizing donors' contribution to fully fund the Joint Response Plan, JRP. Mr. Chair, we are heartened by the High Commissioner's continued focus and reflection on the Rohingya crisis. His recent visit to Bangladesh and the Rohingya camps and his very useful exchange on the sideline of UNGA with Honorable Chief Advisor of the Interim Government of Bangladesh, Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus. It is high time we enabled the forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals to return to their home. We cannot keep them waiting for any longer. Let us renew our commitment to solving this crisis once and for all. Bangladesh is committed to fully cooperate to achieve this objective. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the High Commissioner to respond to the points raised in the debate. You have the floor. Thank you.
Señor Presidente.
Chairperson.
With Asia and the statement of Korea, taking advantage of this last ExCom of mine to really thank Korea for, I have observed it myself in these 10 years, this growing role and financial contributions and participation in our fora. Thank you very much for that. I'm very happy that I will have a chance once more to visit Korea next week and to be able to convey this gratitude to your government. Also with the encouragement to continue along this road. I know times are difficult for everybody, but really your support is becoming more and more crucial, and not just in Asia, but as you said in your statement, also beyond. And, beyond just funding, also, you said it's a small program. Yeah, it is a small program, but it's significant that you have a resettlement program. So I would encourage you to try to grow that as well. Thank you very much. And staying in Asia, congratulate the Ambassador of Bangladesh for her recent appointment here in Geneva, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said about Moldova, the refugee crisis in Bangladesh has been one that I have followed personally, not from the beginning, because of course Bangladesh has been receiving refugees for many, many decades, but this very difficult chapter of the Rohingya crisis since 2017, I've witnessed personally as High Commissioner. I was there when the first people arrived in Bangladesh and heard shocking stories. And thank you very much for having received these people in spite of the tremendous challenges that you face in that particular part of the country in particular. I know how difficult it has been. I've tried my best over the years. As you know personally, Ambassador, I've tried my best to stand for Bangladesh and not, of course, stand for the refugees themselves. And zooming into the current moment, I was pleased to be able to exchange with the Honorable Chief Advisor. I think his vision in terms of promoting a solution for Rohingya refugees in their country, which is what they want, but of course the conditions have to be created, is a very solid vision which deserves full support from the international community. I also know that you are facing soon another challenge, which is elections and an elected government. And I do trust that the commitments made by this government in respect of the Rohingya refugees will continue to stand. I'm sure, I trust that they will continue to stand with the new government. So thank you very much. May I add one small point? Thank you for being such a champion of the link between climate and displacement. You have been one of the and you do it because you see the impact in your own country. So please continue to speak from experience, because it is helpful for us to make the point that that link needs to be addressed very urgently. And I hope the COP in Brazil will be an opportunity to do that. Thank you very much, Ambassador, and welcome again. Je passe à la déclaration.
I turn to Algeria's statement, and I thank Algeria. Firstly, I thank you for having chosen to help us by mobilizing resources. It's very important. We know that humanitarian assistance is going through a difficult period. This effort to mobilize resources, as you mentioned, in the private sector, also inside Algeria, it is very important, and this is something that should be encouraged in Algeria and elsewhere. We always stand ready to cooperate as regards people arriving in Algeria who need protection. We remain entirely committed to helping despite the scant resources. We stand ready to help the Sahrawi refugees. Allow me to reiterate my wish that a solution for them in a peaceful context through political means be found in the near future. I remain in the sub-region thanking Tunisia for its statement. Tunisia has a difficult geographical situation. I mentioned that with Malta this morning, but it's true of Tunisia as well. It's on the migration routes through Africa, through North Africa to Europe. It's a major challenge, aggravated by the closeness of the Sudan war, which brings in refugees. So we've had a number of discussions in recent months and years, discussions which weren't always easy because it's a complex situation, but we stand ready to have access to those who need assistance, particularly refugees, support the government in doing that, and in strengthening its asylum system to manage the situation better, as we have discussed in recent times. Thank you again.
Slightly different part of this region, to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for its words. The kingdom has important roles to play, it was mentioned, in some difficult conflicts. I know that the kingdom is involved in the Middle East, in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This is outside our mandate, at least the consequences of that, directly speaking, but a very important role that I hope the kingdom will continue to robustly carry out. More germane to our mandate is the role of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and other countries in trying to put an end to the conflict in Sudan. So please multiply this effort. Yesterday, I praised the declaration of the Quad, of which Saudi Arabia is part, in September. I think it's very promising. Please carry on. Maybe a space for peace opens up, because that is still the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world. Meanwhile, we'll continue to interact at our level with the King Salman Center and continue to engage, hoping that the contributions, the financial contributions of the kingdom will grow, with special attention, if I may ask, for the return of refugees to Syria, which I know is an area of interest to the kingdom and something that we would like to continue to cooperate even more. Cambio de región.
Changing regions, I thank Costa Rica for its statement. I thank my dear friend Christian, the ambassador, for his commitment on a personal level. And it's been a privilege to cooperate with Costa Rica. This is a co-sponsor of the first Global Forum for Refugees. It's been a privilege to stand with Costa Rica as it responded to regional refugee flows. There were a lot of asylum seekers from Nicaragua, Venezuela, and other countries hosted by Costa Rica. Thank you for that. We worked very well in the regional framework of the MIRPs. That, I think, is one of the most positive products of the Global Forum on Refugees and a regional success story, which we need to continue. I am happy to participate once more in the annual MIRPs meeting in San Jose, Costa Rica in November. And I thank the ambassador once more for her tribute to the colleagues who lost their jobs. Thank you for that. I also thank Venezuela for hosting refugees over the years and for progress in protection, as mentioned in the statement. However, I entirely reject the statement by Venezuela that HCR is aligning itself with the hegemonic power, whatever that might be. In this topic, we don't need that type of comment, and we will continue with the work needed under our mandate. I thank Madagascar moving to Africa for its commitment to support human rights and international principles and institutions responsible for implementing that principle. I understand the challenges that Madagascar is facing, including climate challenges. I've just mentioned that responding to Bangladesh, but the same holds true for Madagascar. Madagascar, in its statement, made specific requests, which we'll be following up.
Norway, what can I say other than 10 years of strong and unfailing support to UNHCR? Thank you very, very much. And when I say support, I mean it. It's political support, policy support in many discussions, moral support when it was needed, financial support, constantly flexible, substantive. So many times I can think in which in these past 10 years, when faced with very difficult situations, I called the permanent representative and got follow-up to those requests for help. Thank you very much. I must say, I want to single out of the many points you raised, I agree with all of them, but the importance of flagging that the work that we're doing on solutions for internally displaced people, which you have very much promoted and supported, is really one model also for both the humanitarian reset and UN80 in terms of how we work together across agencies and in a unified manner within the UN with a view to support governments to find solutions for their own people. So thank you very much for being such a champion of that initiative, which will continue to need support going forward. And Denmark also. I want to praise Denmark because they said in a modest way in their statement, dear ambassador, dear Ib, you said that you were one of the few countries that kept the 0.7%. Thank you for that. May I speak for a moment, not only as the High Commissioner for Refugees, but as a European, independent European, as I will be in a few weeks again. You do us proud. I find it rather embarrassing that so many European countries have reneged on the commitment to increase the percentage of funding that goes towards humanitarian and development. I fully appreciate, and it's not my business for now to intervene in the debate on military spending, but that in order to increase, maybe necessarily, that military spending at the expense of humanitarian and development, I am not proud of this as a European, but I'm proud that there are countries like yours that have increased military spending. I know that, sorry to stray away from my mandate, somebody will say that for sure, but that you have kept, nevertheless, the 0.7%. And this has translated into very generous contributions for us all along, and a very flexible contribution. Also very innovative contribution. You have been a champion of the Nexus. What I mentioned briefly in my opening statement, what we've done in Kenya, what you've done in Kenya, rallying together state aid, Danish private sector, Kenyan government, UN is a model of how these sustainable responses should be. And thank you very much. I hope we can replicate that model in other places. We've also had sometimes difficult discussion on policy issue, on protection issues related to domestic issues, but I have to say always constructive, and I look forward to continuing these constructive discussions going forward. Honorable Speaker of the Parliament of Poland, thank you for not reading the statement. You must be the only one in the whole audience who has done that. It's refreshing because, you know, I have to improvise all of this. So at least somebody who also doesn't read. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to go back to a couple of points. One is that hope sells better than fear. That's what you said. And that we should highlight success stories. I fully agree. The problem is there are not many, and they're far apart. So let's have more success stories that we can highlight. But I think that we need to convey a sense that these difficult problems of refugees can be solved. And the foundation of this solution is solidarity. And I witness myself In February 2022, 5 days after the beginning of the war, I was at the border between Poland and Ukraine, and I witnessed the incredible generosity of the Polish people in respect of the people coming. I know things have become more complex. You have hosted many refugees, but I want to remember, I think it's good to recall that this happened a few years ago. You also said that everybody, all donations, all acts of generosity are important, that every, a penny is as worthy as $1 million. I couldn't agree more, although I would certainly invite everybody to give us some more $1 million because that's what we need. But certainly generosity is appreciated wherever it comes. Thank you to Croatia for also expressing very clearly in your statement solidarity with the humanitarian workers that are at risk. Several of you have spoken about this, related also to I said it yesterday several times, the New York, or the initiative in New York in support of that. Please, let's take this very seriously. It is very dangerous in many places, and we need to really translate concretely that solidarity into concrete measures. Thank you, Croatia, for what you do for Ukrainian refugees and for humanitarian operations in Ukraine, but also the fact that you mentioned Syrians. I really want to encourage European countries in particular and countries from the Gulf region to invest more in the reconstruction of Syria. It is urgent. Believe me, yesterday I had another meeting with the Syrian minister that led the delegation, and it's very, very urgent. And last but not least, I hope today not to have forgotten anybody, thank you, Slovenia, for your commitment to principles and global responses, and for your very strong commitment to peace. I really appreciated in your statement the point where you said, in this very divided world, it's only unity of action that will allow us to make progress in these areas, including our sphere of solving displacement situations. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we will continue with the list of speakers this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Before adjourning, I would like to give the floor to the Secretary for an announcement.
Thank you, Chairperson. Distinguished delegates, I wish to inform you that a side event, Growing Membership Strengthening Resolve, 1 year of the Global Alliance to End Statelessness, will take place at 1:30 p.m. in room 5. Sandwiches will be provided outside the room for your convenience. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señora Key.
Thank you, Ms. Kier. The fifth meeting of the 76th plenary session of the Executive Committee is adjourned. Thank you very much for participating. you.